everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm here today, joined by three very unique and insightful individuals to talk about the new unusual, which is now the new normal. And we're here to give our own perspectives and differing opinions on what we've experienced recently and what we think is due to come. So if I let everyone introduce themselves, I'll go first. I'm Harrison. I'm one of the co-founders of EdgeTech Headhunters. We're an emerging and disruptive technology headhunting business, and we work right across the globe on permanent and contract positions in technology areas such as RPA, intelligent automation, AI, data science, and IoT. Over to Paul.
Hello, I'm Paul McGilvray, co-founder of a company called Remote. We're a custom software development agency. We've been going for over 20 years, working for clients like Volvo, Sony, Mitsubishi, and Volkswagen Group. So we work for companies who are making a positive impact in the world. Right now, we've been working with our clients to help them in this time to create new revenue streams with digital products and to also automate their existing processes so they can do more with fewer resources. So that's what I'm about.
Great. Mary?
Hi, my name is Mary Williams. I'm the Mind Architect. I work with professionals and high-level talent, enabling them to find clarity in their lives, to make better decisions and to work out their work-life balance. I work with people in the arts, politics, and the media, as well as in the corporate C-suite, helping people find the balance that they want to find in their lives moving forward. I've seen in the time of COVID, as I'm going to call it, a huge difference in the way that people are managing that. And it's quite an interesting way that we're seeing this huge variety in the way that people respond.
Great, thank you. And last but not least, Kieran.
Hi Harrison, hi guys. My name is Kieran Gilmurray. I've worked in technology and business for about the last 27 years. I talk about the future of technology, automation, digitization. Today I'll be talking about that and what that's going to look like going forward for companies in this new unusual, or as Harrison says, this new normal world.
Thank you, Kieran. So what we want to do next is to really talk about our own experiences and the areas that we specialize in and give a perspective to everyone in terms of what we've experienced, what we think this means for the industries and the sectors that we work into, and how we're embracing this new normal, this new unusual way of working and way of living. So I think to kick us off, I think it'd be interesting for Kieran to give your point of view on everything and see how things have changed and how they're going to be for you.
Yeah, thanks, Harrison. Look, I find it a really interesting time at this moment. You know, as I specialize in technology and automation and thinking about the future work and how we live, engage, and communicate. I was waiting for the last numbers of years, as you will know, for automation really to kick in and accelerate. And usually there's lots of reasons why that doesn't happen. You know, it can be business, politics, it can be siloed organizations, it can be lack of funding. There's a whole host of reasons. And, you know, primary to those I find very often, whether we like it or not, is people. You know, very often we don't like change. At this moment in time, the world has had to change. If you look at, a rough statistic, but about 2.5 billion people over the last month have had to turn their lives upside down, work from home, and work online. You know, that is going to be a catalyst that really is going to drive digital transformation at a pace. I can't remember the last time I spent cash. You know, that's something that, you know, when you look at ever increasing numbers of people, they're doing that. I'm seeing a lot more about automation, online service, self-service, chatbots, businesses rushing to put their wares online. You know, if we'd have waited and there was no impetus for it, I think that could have taken numbers of years. Now it has to happen. When we've no choice, we're making it happen. You know, it's a really, really interesting time. I think how we're now forming relationships, and that's in terms of work. You know, I noticed the number of salespeople contacting me online and LinkedIn. Fascinating. I was talking to a friend of mine yesterday who delivers, you know, learning and development courses. They're having to pivot online to deliver those across the world. But interesting, her, like me, see tremendous opportunity in that. So Northern Ireland market's small, Ireland market's that little bit bigger. But interestingly, now we're talking about engaging with people from the UAE, across the world, and then our market truly becomes global. Fascinating time. People often talk about the future of automation being something that's, years ahead. Trust me, it isn't now. AI, cloud computing, AR, virtual reality, Zoom meetings, Zumba on Zoom, they're all happening now. In all honesty, I can't see us going backwards from it. If anything, things will accelerate, but that doesn't mean they're without impact. I think a lot of people are now getting Zoom tired, and that's not to criticize the product, but again, it shows you how do we form or develop or grow human relationships, which we're really strong at, and get the best out of people, their innate skills, whilst automating away the routine, the mundane, and taking the robot out of people. It'd be fascinating to hear Mary's point of view, just as she's actually engaging with leaders, and Paul, as you're engaging with your customers and your staff, how's it impacting you guys? Because the only thing I can see is more automation, more digital, more intelligence. But again, we do not want to lose the human in that process. We really, really do not.
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, what are we, 6 weeks into lockdown now? It's kind of gone into 3 phases. First of all, it seemed like the whole world froze and budgets were just stopped. And it was like, that's it. We're not doing any business until this thing's over. And then like a couple of weeks in, people were going, oh, okay, it's going to be a while. We better do something about this. And there was, at least from my point of view, there was a move towards digital products, the additional revenue streams, how can I create my online learning courses now? I am teaching, I have been teaching person to person, but now I need to bring it all online. How can I do that? How can I create that course? Or how can I automate this service? And then as the digital products started to roll and the additional revenue stream started to become part of our consciousness, it's then, okay, I've had to furlough half my staff. What do I automate? How can I automate this? So from freeze to additional revenue to automating the hell out of everything. I agree. I don't think anything will come back from this in the same way. As far as
do you think I was going to say, Paul, do you think he would have moved at such pace if he didn't have to? Or is the fact that COVID has changed the world an absolute driver impetus for automation?
Yeah, absolutely. Just like you, Kieran, I've been saying to people up until this point, yeah, we're looking at 5 to 10 years before, the robots are in control, basically, in a positive way. I welcome that. But yes, everything's been accelerated, hasn't it? The time scale of everything has been accelerated. And I don't think anyone could have really predicted, maybe Bill Gates was talking about it, but even not in this way. I don't think anyone could have predicted that we needed something to shove us into it. The amount of people holding back from technology. Oh yeah, I probably should be creating just even the base, my marketing funnels. I probably should be doing my marketing funnels, or I should be probably holding webinars, or, even at that simple level. But I can't really do that. Now it's like you do that or you die. It's becoming that fundamental. So, I feel for businesses, retail, hospitality, that are really struggling. I'm in Shropshire, we're a massive tourist industry. That's just, the bottom has dropped out of that. But we'll find ways of pushing through by bringing things online. I'm sure we will. Staff-wise, very similar. A freeze and oh wow, that's the end of my job. That's it. And then thank God we're in tech. So things are easier for us. We finished work on the Friday in the office, and we had our daily stand-up Monday morning from home, and we didn't skip a beat. So I'm very lucky that we had that automation and all of those systems and processes in place already. But now we're starting to talk about maybe lockdown being relaxed and us coming back to work. And one of my staff members was saying today, so I'm really loving working from home. We're going to be talking about flexible working hours. We're going to talk about flexible working. And so, with my wife, who's co-founder of the business, we were like, well, maybe we don't need an office this big. Maybe if half the staff or half the team are working from home, maybe things will change.
Yeah, because I think sorry. I was going to say, no, I think it's fascinating because, again, when Ireland, as you know, is a big tourist industry as well as everything else. One thing I love, and then Mary, I'm going to jump in here and talk about the human impact of this. I have to say, people have been at their most creative when they've had to. I've seen Restaurants, all of a sudden, they can't open up the doors, but they've created delivery services online. You know, again, local off license, you can't really, they've created businesses online. You know, people have pivoted really, really quickly, you know, because they've had to get different income streams. And I'm sort of wondering, you know, there's a lot of pressure put on founders to come up with all these reasons. Like, you as a leader of a business have had to think of these things, solve for these things. But I just wonder, Mary, how are other leaders reacting, and how are they going to pivot their models or get their ideas and their staff's ideas out of their heads and create these online digital businesses that, you know, pivot easily. And again, maybe in a couple of years' time, they're going to have to pivot again.
I agree. I think it's an interesting conversation I was having with somebody, because I'm Cambridge based, and Cambridge is highly tech based. And so we were discussing the fact that there's an awful lot of companies in Cambridge who have been able to say, right, we'll all work from home. But like you say, retail and hospitality, they can't do that. And certainly the change that I've seen is people have either completely embraced it and gone, great, this is opportunity, it's adventurous, it's action orientated, and they've pivoted, or they've panicked. And in some respects, we get a middle point. We just kind of went here to here. And I think what I'm now seeing is people relaxing out of both of those. So those people who've been kind of hyper for the last 6 weeks are now starting to go, actually, I need some downtime, and I need some time, you know, to be a human being in this. And the people who are in panic mode are starting to come out of it. And I think, you know, it was interesting looking, just using my own business as a coach and therapist, it completely disappeared within the first 2 weeks of lockdown. And I certainly did a bit of a, but it's slowly building back up. And I knew at the time what people have done is they've gone into that fight, flight, freeze instinct. Yeah. And we do when our food, shelter, all of those key issues are affected, then we go into panic. And it was, you know, I was aware this is a matter of people being able to lift out of panic. And as you said, Paul, it's that kind of, oh, hang on, this is going to last for ages. We need to keep going. And so I think those people that have translated online really quickly and really easily, I think it's going to be here to stay. I don't think we're going to go backwards in it at all. I think the people whose businesses need a bit more thought. So from my point of view, there's a certain amount that I'm happy to put online, but I'm mainly bespoke one-to-one. And for me, it didn't change at all, because actually I worked on Zoom with a lot of clients, but it's those clients that would have come one-to-one now having that mindset that everything's online. So for me, it's actually escalated a process that I personally wanted to move towards, which was having more people online. That it's, you know, we're now not going to be flying all around the world for that one meeting on those conference calls, which, you know, client-wise is brilliant. So I think emotionally, there's a huge sort of a split population, really. There's a half the population who have been furloughed and are about to be made redundant. And certainly, I know one of the MDs that I was speaking to, he said he felt it was almost like a breach of contract, that companies had been saying, you know, this is an employee retention scheme. And he said, actually, we were just putting off, you know, making these people redundant in 3 months' time. And that's what we're going to do. Things like the property sector obviously been massively hit as well. So I think there's going to be a huge turnover. I mean, we're all expecting a sort of recession where people are going to go through a really challenging time, or it feels like they're going to be going through a really good time. And there's almost going to be this huge gap in between where nothing's really happening for people. And I think my concern is it's how are people managing their mental health, and the pressure on those that are not just doing poorly, but those that are doing really well. And I think that's the thing. In 6 months' time, we need to come back to people who've been pivoting for the last kind of 6 months and then going, and where's life balance, and where are you now, as well as with all of that unemployment too. So I think it's going to be really challenging for a lot of people.
See, I suppose this is, and that's the bit I worry about, is the people in the process. Because, you know, I would say, you mentioned there a moment ago, the model that you wanted to pivot toward was online. And I think for a long time, I've worked remote for years. You tend to when you're Belfast based in a global role. But now it's interesting, after the first couple of weeks of awkwardness with cats flying past heads, children running by, I get the impression that, you know, people, it was very novel. They struggled a little bit. Then it has become the new normal. Now they're starting to become, maybe the word is either, you know, tired of Zoom or whatever other product you're actually using. Now they're getting used to it again, depending on how you've done it. And therefore, for businesses that struggle to get people to engage online and grow their market outside of their local area, now that everybody is so used to dealing in this particular manner, I actually wonder if it's going to be easier for businesses to do that. So if you can garner 100 clients in your local area, I now wonder with your reputation online, can you garner 1,000? Because they're so used to engaging online in this new way, because they have no choice. Will that grow more? You know, and that's the bit I would
yeah. And I do agree. I think that is going to happen. I certainly know over the years I've come across clients who said, you know, I've engaged with your content and loved what you're doing, but I'm in Scotland and I really want to see someone face to face. And I think that face to face question is just not going to exist anymore, because people, oh, actually, yeah, I'm used to it now. And just to come back to what you were saying about the kind of Zoom tiredness, that's something all of my clients, every single client I have that is still working a working day is reporting. And, you know, what we're having to do is say, you need to move some of this to the phone, because actually having to concentrate looking at you, and I can only see head and shoulders. I can't see your body language. You know, I might not be able to pick up your micro expressions if the picture's not great. I'm struggling to hear contact sometimes, you know, if the signals are not great. We're almost having to focus so hard that 1 hour on Zoom almost becomes 3 hours in person. And some of my clients have got 7 hours of Zoom contact a day. And actually what we've had to do is say, you've got to drop it down. So even for me, when I work online, face to face, I might see 4 or 5 clients a day. Online, I would only ever see 2 or 3. So
that's
the way that we work is going to really change, because we can't do 7 hours on Zoom every day. Same for school kids actually as well.
I was just commenting to I'm one of those people on Zoom most of the days now, and I am exhausted, frankly. I think what we're seeing is, I mentioned the timeline changing. That's another way the timeline has changed. If I was to have an inquiry for a new client, for example, I would say, oh yeah, I'll look in my diary for next week or the week after and say, why don't you come and see us on this day? Or why don't I come and see you on this day? And I'll book out the afternoon. But now that's out the window. So did a webinar on Monday, email on Tuesday. I said, great. Let's speak on Thursday. I'm taking the day off on Wednesday. It was my wife's birthday. So it's like, everything's, you know, and that was one of 4 or 5 meetings today. And it's because we can see in our diary, I don't have any traveling time. I don't have to stop. We don't really have to even do the niceties of making cups of tea for each other and bringing out the biscuits. We can just say hour slot. And it is exhausting. And I think we're going to feel that, especially considering those of us that are doing this, that have quickly moved online, are the ones who are throwing all of their energy into pivoting and changing their business models to cope with this new situation. And so there's the double exhaustion of having to push our businesses through that while keeping up and selling, delivering. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the weekend.
I do think that the other piece to take into effect is that also all of those people are now working from home. So they've got home or partners at home. I mean, I had a call with a client the other day whose wife just came in and got something off the printer, went out, came in again. And it's finding that boundary, not only for yourself, but for how is your family going to work, and that added pressure of, if you've got 2 working parents and kids at home, who looks after the kids and where and when. So people then being pushed to work later into the evening on Zoom and things like that, and it just becomes very intense. So I think a real key learning for us very, very quickly in 6 weeks has been, you need to be careful of your day.
It's interesting because now I tend to choose, if I hear kids, I hear babies online, and it's automatically filtered out. I'm a better AI engine than Zoom. But I suppose it does go back to that. I've been doing this for years, and the bit that I forget sometimes is that, you know, I Zoom all the time. I'm so used to it. I have a certain proportion of my day in it. Then I go to the telephone, you know what I mean? Then it's email. And as long as I am breaking up the different technologies, I can do that. You know, but again, I'm a glass half full, if that makes sense, all the time. I need to be more conscious of others, you know, who are just new to this. Because when I hear stuff like, you know, estate agents, for example, dealing with one at the moment, you know, you're sort of going, fantastic, you know, get a phone, video the property, I can get a virtual walkthrough. I don't, like Paul, have to spend an hour traveling to the house to look at it, to see it, to rent it. You know, I'm going, fantastic use of technology, fantastic time save. I've now got 2 hours back in my day. The bit that I need to do more of, you know, which is mine, I tend to work, start early, finish late, is now, instead of taking up the time that I would have been commuting with more work, I can probably do more to spend a little bit more time actually using that time to go for a walk in the middle of the day, or, have the family meals that I've always envisaged that I want to do. But I have to say, it's a fascinating time, Harrison. I don't know, from a recruitment point of view, how are you finding it with new clients and onboarding and selling and everything else?
Yeah, it's definitely a mixed bag from our side. There are organisations that have completely put everything on hold. We work with a range of different customers and clients. So we've got organisations who are global entities, multiple offices across the world, thousands of employees, and the technology transformation programs that they're working on are really important, and they're going to really transform the way that the business works, and it's going to help them move into this way of digitally working remotely. But because they've had to furlough or make a load of their employees redundant, they can't then say, oh, we need to hire a load of people to continue this program. They need to reassess their budget spending and have a look at where the business is heading once all this has happened. The smaller businesses are a bit more agile. They're able to adapt and adjust like we have, with our businesses. Certainly from my perspective as well, small recruitment business like we are, very much like Paul said, we were in the office on a Friday, and then the next week we were working from home, and it's easy to do that, but with bigger organizations it takes a bit of time. And I think in conditions like this, recruitment is typically the last thing on people's minds. When workforces are reduced, when workloads are reduced, the last thing people want to do is to add more people to the company. So naturally we've taken a bit of a hit, but we've also seen some organizations that have really pushed on in this time. It is good to see. It's good to see that these organizations who are being innovative, they're seeing this period as a bit of a downtime in their organization, whether they're not as busy working with customers and they can focus on other areas. If they've got backlogs in certain areas of the business, they're using this time to sort of capitalize, to catch up on things that they've not necessarily gotten around to doing before that really need to be done. So we've worked with these businesses to still grow their teams, and really these types of organizations are ones that have got quite a lot of cash in the business already. They're quite flush. They can survive quite a while without without any revenue issues. So they're the ones that have just said, yep, let's do it, and they've onboarded people. They've completely transformed their recruitment process. So we've helped a number of clients with virtual interviewing completely, just all through Zoom, without having to meet anyone. And as I'm sure some of you may have experienced, hiring people or being part of interviews without actually physically meeting someone, it's quite hard to gauge. Mary, like you were saying about someone's body language, you can't really gauge them, from the shoulder up. You can't tell what they're like, or their reactions to certain questions. So doing that and hiring someone remotely and virtually is a big step, and it takes a lot of I think the employer has to put a lot of trust into that person, and it's not for everyone. Not everyone can do it, and not everyone's built to be able to hire people like that. But the people who are, and the ones who want to take that calculated risk, they're doing some really good things and really taking that next step forward. And I think it's going to transform the way that businesses work moving forward. I think interviews always, usually in the past, that there were telephone interviews and video interviews, but there was always that person-to-person contact. Even if you're in another country, they'd fly you over if it was a final interview for most organizations, bring you into the office, get to meet everyone. But nowadays you can't do that. So you get everyone on a Zoom call or whatever platform you're using, and have a conversation, have a virtual coffee, get to meet everyone that way, and then a decision has to be made. And we've seen some businesses do some really good work, and virtually onboarding someone as well, which is a whole other thing. trying to virtually onboard someone, because how do you provide the training? Are you going to send them? You've got to post them out their kit, and you have to figure out what they need, what support, and you have to plan it completely different to when they're actually in the office. So we've actually got a structure that we put together to help businesses actually do this, and it's almost like a step-by-step guide saying, this is basically your checklist that you need to have before you onboard someone. These are the steps that you need to take, and these are the suggestions that we advise. And a lot of businesses have used that over the past couple of weeks, and they've found it quite useful to actually have a structure set out, because some of the businesses that we work with, they never onboarded someone virtually before. It's never been a thing. They've always had them come into the office to collect their kit, even if they were in the office maybe once or twice a week and maybe working from home all the time. They still had to come in and do the onboarding for the first 2 weeks or so. I'm sure all of you have kind of experienced onboarding at some point, and it's quite an intense couple of days or week where you're learning everything. So it's all about how do you do that remotely. So it's good to see some organizations being quite innovative and changing the way that their processes work, but we're seeing that it's more of sometimes the smaller organizations which are better suited to that. And I think, going back to your point, Kieran, around businesses being thrust into a new way of working and having to be digital, we're still seeing organizations move to the cloud now. Big businesses, enterprise organizations that are still thinking the cloud is something new, and they're going through these long transformation programs, and then all of a sudden we've got all these new technologies which they can adopt. Chatbots, conversational AI for customer services when they haven't got the people in the office. It's also new. I think from your opinion, I don't know how you feel about this, but how are these big businesses going to, I know that they've been pushed into this new way of working, but how quickly can they adapt and adopt technology? Because it's quite hard to steer a big ship like that. And, if they've only just adopted cloud, how are they going to all of a sudden adopt these new technologies as well?
Yeah, I think it's so. I'll maybe give you a couple of comments, because interestingly, when you talk about new world, there was a chap last night who I met on LinkedIn. He reached out. We did a Zoom call, of course, and I was advising him of the very same thing, just for a bit of fun, help him out. I think a couple of things. One, just to go back through your points, the fact that you have built that induction plan to help people cope in this new era. I'm actually seeing a lot of that, so that rather than you wait, hope the phone rings, you're actually being proactive, guiding people because you've experience of it doing it. And I just wonder, small w, if more firms did that and helped people cope, or helped them understand how to do the things that they currently do in the digital age, I wonder if that would actually drive the demand for them. Because the organizations I'm seeing, there's probably a couple of things, and Mary, I'm going to come to you in a moment. Like, you can transform at a pace if you have to. If you don't have to, it can take years. And, take your cloud provider of choice. When I started out in IT 27 years ago, if I wanted a server, I ordered it online, I picked up the phone, I specified what I wanted. It took maybe 2, 3, 4 weeks to arrive. I then ordered the operating system, I installed that, and. It could be 12 weeks before I actually got anywhere. Now I can spin up something on Amazon, Azure, Google Cloud, whatever it is, in hours. Download a website. Doesn't have to be perfect, and that is the beautiful part of this age. No one is expecting perfection. So therefore, you can throw something up within reason, put your phone number up, put a booking slot up, offer to do home delivery. If you're a restaurant, you can offer to do videos online, roughly made with your mobile phone if you're an estate agent, and you're up in days. And for me, I see this as a tremendous opportunity for vendors and businesses like yourself, Paul. The same thing. What can you help companies understand the new way of working? Nobody's expecting perfect, so fantastic, throw it up. My personal one is, if it were me and it was my magic money, I'd be out recruiting the talent that I need because it's available, or going to people to get it in, helping the companies understand how to turn digital and giving them ideas and all the advices that you can get to get them online. But throughout this, the bit is, people talk about digital if it's a something, it's about getting your product to market in this new way, something that customers want. You need to help them do it. The one thing you do need to do is help your staff understand digital as well, help them transform in this new world, help them engage in this new business model, and help them help your clients as well and communicate, whatever that is, be it Zoom, phone call, chatbot, or something else, but it's all there. It really is. And go out and get the talent to do it. They're in the market. And again, I'm a bit of a fan of LinkedIn and other marketing channels, because people have cut budgets. This is a time when, yourselves, Paul, Mary, if you were spending £100 on Facebook, 6 months ago, you would have maybe been able to advertise to 100 people. That same £100, you can probably get 1,000 people and just think now everyone's in front of their computer screen and your potential captive audience, it isn't going away. But I don't know, Paul, how are you helping the businesses, and how are you helping your team understand how to help businesses in this digital age?
So we started just this week a series of webinars with exactly that intention. So we're running a series on how to go through the process of designing digital products and finding your perfect candidates for optimization, your perfect candidates for automation, so that you can optimize your business. And so it's, when you're in your bubble, you assume that everyone else is doing this. And actually, it's fascinating that the number of people that have said, I just covered the basics on Monday and I'll be doing another in a couple of weeks, but have said, wow, that was so helpful. There's so much to learn. Oh my goodness. Whoa. And it's brilliant. It's like, well, okay, I've got some real value here that I can show you. And actually just walking people through the process. What is an MVP? How do you don't just design a 200 grand system and launch it. It's, you test your assumptions, test your market, find out what your customers think, and roll it out. Those whole processes, and especially with this bounce back loan that the government's offering, most businesses in the UK at least have got 50 grand to spend, and they can't spend it on resources like, really, they can't pay back their loans, and they can't really hire staff. They need to spend it on an asset that's gonna show they've got something to go forwards with in this new economy, and it is a new economy. So yeah, it's all about that for me. It's all about showing people how they can digitize and how they can work out how to bring their business online.
I think it's coming back to Harrison's point, it's about just taking that interview process. I think it's really quite interesting, because ultimately we evolve as humans, and we always have. That's why we're still here. And if you look at many of the things that we do now, we weren't doing them 50, 100 years ago. And so I think it's interesting what you were saying about the interview, because obviously for me, I do deeply therapeutic work and have done on Zoom for years now. And so my ability to read micro expressions, to engage with people, connect with people is fine, it's honed. And I think that's what we'll see over the next year, is people will stop being afraid of that process, because they will hone that skill set.
Yeah.
And that's what it is, isn't it? It's a skill set. It's a skill to say, yeah, actually I made good judgment calls on that many people, and so I can trust myself to hire, or no, I didn't, or that person in the office is better at doing this and I'm not. And so I just think of this as, it's a skill set growth period, where we're all saying, what's my gap, what's my missing piece. And I think, like both Paul and Kieran, you've said, this sort of fast acceleration into digital is something that lots of people, myself included, I'd always worked really successfully on referrals and doing talks. I didn't really need the digital element, and it was sort of ticking away in the back of my head with I must do it, on the list of priorities. And suddenly I've gone, oh, okay, now I need to do it right now. And so I think this is just a skill set that we're going to look at. It's a skill set that we're going to learn to interview well. For me, it's just not an issue to work therapeutically.
Yeah.
And I think it will become just within 3 to 6 months, it will not be an issue for people to interview online too. I think, interestingly, the other thing that has accelerated is, and you all talked about this not wanting to commute. That if you've got your hour, I don't have to do tea and biscuits, I don't have to do that. That what I've seen in clients, and a lot of that really high level clients who maybe had an hour and a half commute a day, just saying, I'm not doing that again. I don't want to do it. And actually being able to do my full day that I did, but literally kind of walk up my garden and back into my house with my kids, go for a run, go for a walk. It's about a year or so ago, I would say, that we started changing to a, for want of a better term, kind of heart-led leadership. I am a human being under this. And it's massively accelerated that actually by putting people back in their homes with their kids, with their pets, with their in-laws, wherever they are, they've had to become whole people again. And people weren't doing that. They some were, but it not in this way. And they've had to go, I am either okay as a human being or I'm not. And that knock-on effect depends on then how they manage their team. So if they're okay and their head's been in the right place, the team tends to run fairly well. But if they haven't, then the teams are struggling with them. And it's this kind of slide. But I think it's accelerated the digital, but it's accelerated this need for, I as a human being need to be okay within my career as well as at home.
Yeah.
and I find that quite fascinating. It's just put the accelerator down on it.
Yeah.
And that's the clients that I'm now seeing are saying, I can't cope with being at home and constantly interrupted, or I don't know how to balance myself, and it's basic. And I've been giving out, you know, similar to you, Harrison. I loved your idea of, you know, this is how you do it, this step-by-step guide. I've literally had to say to people, so you need to think about what's behind you when you're on Zoom. And actually said to some of the team leaders, you know, actually you sitting there in your pajama top, you know, with a bit of breakfast on your face and really unshaven, this is when your team needs you to be clear. They need the clarity of leadership. They need to see that you're doing well. And whether you are doing well like that, you know, look at how you're presenting yourself. So I think it's really fascinating, you know, like, you know, interviewing online and the company's building out. And certainly I was talking to someone today in a very big company, and she said they are already restructuring, already they're going, whether or not this works. And I think it was you said, you know, they've got the time to almost stop and go, what wasn't working? And she was saying, actually, they looked at their company and went, the structure that we have wasn't working. Now we've got time. Now everyone's at home. We're just going to completely redo it. So I think it's fascinating. It's almost like a kind of a bicycle spoke where that accelerating point is just shooting out in huge different directions, personal and professional.
Yeah.
I find that bit interesting, because I was going to say there are two parts. Just, I've seen people now do, you know, value stream mapping online. I was talking to someone yesterday doing exactly that. And again, I think there's a learning period, awkward day 1, day 2, day 3, done. Now, just on the leadership bit though, I do say leaders have a lot of responsibility. You know, very often at the totem poles, they need to look up. But, you know, I don't know what you think, Paul and Harrison, you run businesses here. Why are you expected to have all the answers? You know, that's it feels like a lot of pressure that you run a business. You know, at the best of times, everyone goes, I can be the best leader, I should be the manager, and you put them in the position. You know, it may or not work, but do you feel the pressure that you're expected to own all the answers? Because in this new digital age, my one is, it's not quite about going around the world to crowdsource ideas, but everybody should have responsibility. Definitely turning up in a shirt or jumper or something, not unshaven, not with breakfast still hanging off your chops. But I don't think you should have to have all the answers as a leader. I think everybody in the digital age needs to step up, crowdsource the ideas, bring ways of working that they're so used to doing at home. They're, you know, you Zoom at home, you WhatsApp at home, you buy online. Why are all of your staff not coming with you and bringing these things and helping make it a success? Why must it be, again, the manager who's now at home, who now has to cope with their family, their kids, their in-laws, their whatever, their office, their government loans? Why are you still expected to deliver everything? You know, surely there has to be an inversion there, or a joining together of team and manager at this phase and going forward as well. I don't know your thoughts, Paul, you run the team.
I do definitely, I agree, but I think what it is, that's down to company culture really. And also this is something that I've almost battled with for years now, which is that when someone joins our team from another company, they bring that other company's culture with them. And it can take some time for them to neutralize the influence of that other company and then be indoctrinated into our own company culture. And we very much try and have a non-hierarchical company. We try very hard to go with the whole holacracy idea of roles, not job titles. But when the crap hits the fan like this, I think the natural state is for the team to look at the people with whom the buck stops. And I definitely felt it. I felt those eyes looking at us as if, what are we going to do now? And for the first week or so, I like heavily felt it. You know, it was like, oh my God, you know, we're only a team of 10. You know, that's, and me and my wife run the company together. That's 9 mortgages. You know, that I felt the responsibility very heavily for. And I think it's about our team are feeling really confident and are flying now. And I think it's because they saw me and Jeannie properly step up. We upped our marketing, we upped our sales, we upped our online presence and our products and our offering. Everything just switched up a gear. And again, it was that accelerated timeline. It was what we were planning on doing this year, but we just did it in a couple of weeks instead. And we were having one-to-one sessions today on Zoom, of course. And they were feeding back like, I was really worried, but now I'm just excited because I see that you guys have got this. And so no matter how much we try and remove hierarchy, there's just naturally, it's just part of being a social being, I think, that we naturally know those guys are the founders, they're the bosses. Let's look to them and see. But at the same time, certain members of the team are stepping up and suggesting things. So it's not like, it's not a prescriptive leadership thing, but at the end of the day, you know who the buck stops with. And so if it's you, you have to step up.
I think you're right. I agree. I see. Sorry, Mary.
No, go.
Yeah, from a as a owner of a small business, I think you're right. When things like this happen, you look at other people in the organisation. Like you said, that's 9 mortgages. That sit with you, and that's your responsibility to help them, and you need to figure it out. And I think as any business owner, I think would probably agree that being a business owner, you wear multiple hats, especially if you're a small business. And I think the key thing is to learn and adapt. And I think it's how quickly you can learn and adapt in these types of situations to prove whether you'll sink or swim. And I think if the organisation and your employees has been in, if they've been in other situations where things have changed, or you've changed things around, or you've adapted to new situations or scenarios, I think that then gives them confidence. And you're right, once they have the confidence in that you know what you're doing, I think that's the main thing. And I don't think you're expected to have all the answers at all. I don't think anyone can possibly have all the answers, but having the confidence to know that you're able to take on a challenge and you'll learn from it and overcome it eventually, I think that's the main thing. And I think as long as there's that trust part of being in that team, I think that's right. But I think it comes down to leadership. I think that you've obviously got managers and bosses, but I think being a true leader is completely different. And you're right, when you step up, it's driving from the front, and then everyone follows, and then you're just a tighter unit in that sense. So yeah, I think that's from my experience. I mean, we're still quite a young business anyway, and this is probably the biggest thing we've had to face so far. So it's interesting to see how, from our side, how we've adapted and learned and pivoted certain things that we do on a day-to-day basis to adapt to that change. So yeah, no, I completely agree. Yeah, definitely.
I think there's an interesting thing there about, is it that you need to have all the answers, or is it that you need to lead? And I think they're completely different things. And I think actually a leader that comes out and says, I'm here, I've got your structure, I've kind of got you emotionally, safety wise, I don't have all the answers, now let's all pitch in together. Somebody who does bring in their the whole point of having a team is that you've got a team of people. And I think they're the people that are successful, are the ones that can say, I'm vulnerable, I'm being honest here, I'm not sure how we're going to do this, what do you all think? And actually, if you look at kind of military leadership, actually that's often how, certainly like the SAS and people like that, when you speak to them, it's a whole team, how are we going to do this? And I think the other thing that I've seen that is interesting, coming back sort of reported through my clients, is that the people that were meant to step up and be the strong leaders often aren't now, and it's other people. So some of the organisations, the HR talent managers I've spoken to have said, oh, it's really fascinating, we have these 3 people on track for kind of leadership, and these 3 people who are kind of almost quiet in the background, they're the ones that have just kind of shot ahead, and actually these 3 have just kind of almost curled up in a ball. And there's no kind of there's no shame in that we all get to points where we go, I don't want to do this, or it's not my skill, so I can't mentally engage. But it's been, I think that's going to be interesting in organisations to see a shuffle of actually who in this really awful state has kind of pulled it together and led really well, and it's not going to be always the people that we thought it was.
Yeah, I definitely agree, and I think I'd add or maybe reflect back that with what you mentioned, Harrison, I think is a really important thing. This is unprecedented. I've been in business 20 years and had the dot-com boom and the 2008 shift, but that was nothing. That was like a pebble in the road compared to what we're going through now. And it's these times that really can make or break us, and it's all about the bonds that we form in this time. And so as leaders, when we step up and our team can see that we are doing everything, we are not going down without a fight, and in fact going to come out stronger than we were before, then the level of trust that you can see building in our team and in other companies as well is phenomenal. I guess it's probably like, you know how when people go through a massive disaster or some kind of terrorist attack or something, those guys are bonded for life. Now, I'm not going to say this is anything like a terrorist attack, but when you're going through these extreme conditions, and when my team can see that I'm there for them, and I can see that they're also there for me and each other too, which I'm very blessed that they have been. The bonds, I think, we're just gonna soar through the next few years. Yeah.
See, that's the interesting bit, because on a personal note, see the number of connections that have now reached out and have been in touch, and all those Zoom sessions you do on a Friday night with people you haven't talked to maybe in a while. I have to say, I love that part of humanity. It's interesting. I wonder if this time will accelerate the good leaders and maybe expose those who need more development. You know, that will be a fascinating thing to see. So let's see.
So we've spoken about the new normal and the new unusual that we're facing at the moment. I just want to ask each of you what you feel we're going to see over the next the coming months, and perhaps over the next year or so, and what will come out of that from your perspectives and what you think. So Paul, do you want to go first and let us know?
Yeah, I think as restrictions start to ease off, and more of us start to come into the office, it feels to me that there's going to be a lot more of an aspect of flexible working and a lot more remote working and a lot more of these Zoom meetings, because we've popped that cherry now, really, haven't we? And it's not, you know, to mix my metaphors, it's not going back in the bottle. And I think we'll see a lot. For example, for me, despite my company being called remote, I've never hired remote workers. I've always had people that can be in the office every day. And I've been super strict on that because I've never seen that it can work. But now I know that if we get the right people, I can hire someone in Barcelona or Israel or wherever. It doesn't make a difference to me where they are, or even that their hours might be slightly off because of the time zones. I know that we can have that connection. We can make that work. And so if I'm thinking that, many other businesses must be thinking that. So maybe a move away from local employment and local networking and local business to that global move that we've seen coming since the dawn of the internet. I think that's a really exciting thing for many businesses, for every business. You know, we're finally global. We're all global businesses, and there's nothing to stop us being that. And so, yes, there's a recession coming, and we're going to have to hold on tight as we get through it. But as we see businesses step up and really embrace the potential of doing business online globally, I think what we'll see is that new era of business, that new wave of not technology-based businesses, because technology, it's like having an office, saying I'm an office-based business. You never say I'm an office-based business. I think that's going to be just as ridiculous to say I'm an online business or a technology-based business. I'm just a business, and every business now works globally, and every business automates the hell out of everything they can do, and every business runs on every platform. It's an exciting time ahead. It's an exciting time.
Yeah, great, definitely. I agree. Mary, what about yourself?
I think over the next few months it will escalate, but certainly over the next few years, I think it's escalated that we as human beings need to lead. All of us need to lead. We need to lead our own lives, and I think certain leaders they will pull out ahead, way ahead of others. I think what people are realizing is that they can't still have two different personas. So those people that have that kind of work persona and the personal life persona, you can't have it anymore. And I think from my point of view, I think a lot more people will enter a kind of coaching therapy model where they're clearing the stuff. So the main complaint I've heard over the last few weeks is I'm worried about other people judging me. I'm worried about them judging my house. I'm worried about what they think of me. I'm worried about failing. I'm worried about my productivity. It's almost, I use the metaphor that if you've ever picked blackberries and you put them in water, all the kind of stuff floats up to the top. And for me, that's what I've seen, is that people have been able to contact me and go, I've got a problem with this and this and this and this. And before, they just didn't have that self-awareness. So I think it's pushed people, partly from lockdown, they haven't been able to distract themselves with sport and friends. It's pushed people to know themselves better. and that's both personally and professionally. So I think we're actually going to move to a population that actually sorts its stuff out, and I think we're going to sort of go to a much more contented humanity, but also a humanity in a workforce that are going to demand more. So they're going to demand not traveling. They're going to demand, I'm not going to that meeting in Scotland for 1 hour. They're going to demand a lot more from their employers, but I think they're going to give back equally what they demand. And I think, looking at, the profitability and the decision making and the productivity and all of this stuff, I think is actually going to rocket, because if you give people if you give them what they want, if you give them the ability to not commute, to be with their families, to be a human being, then what will happen is they will repay you in loyalty just tenfold. So I think it's going to be an absolutely fascinating next few years where, yes, this escalation of I am a human, I'm a leader, but I'm engaged with my work. I think it's going to be really, really fascinating to see, and a lot more people engaging with, who am I, as much as how do I lead. And the other thing I've seen, sort of secondary to that, is a lot more empathy for people's teams. People are bothering to get to know their teams. They're bothering to get to know what's their personal life. Actually, do you have an ill mother-in-law? Do you have a relative, that you look after? They're bothering to get to know the wider picture. And there's a lot more empathy and understanding out there, which we've just needed for so long. And so again, I think, our workforces, the ones that stay, will become tighter. And there are going to be a lot of people who are going to be made redundant, and I think again it's going to force people to reflect on what's the job I actually want when I get my next job. Where do I want to be? Where do I want to go? What's my future? And the kind of who do I want to be, as well as what role do I want. So I think I agree with Paul. I think it's going to be really, really challenging for a lot of people, but really exciting also for those people too.
Great. And Kieran, what are your thoughts on everything?
Yeah, I would agree with what everyone's saying. I really, really would. I know it's going to be a tough time. It is a tough time for people. I think a lot of things in life are down to people's confidence. I do think this is a pivotal moment. It takes inflection points in life for things to change. There's no going back, Harrison. I've been excited by what technology can enable for years, and be that something as simple as talking to an elderly grandparent on WhatsApp for the first time and watching them get excited by seeing the kids and the grandkids and everything else, to working globally, to ordering online, to getting, I know lots of people are ordering shopping online for the first time, going to Amazon for the first time. And as you say, it's extraordinary. People aren't on the cloud in my world, but they're just not. I see the vulnerability that people are introducing to their lives. I see the fact that you can see everything that's happening. You can hear the stories about ill relatives, broken down cars, kids running back, child minding, all that sort of thing. I think we're going to end up with a more empathetic workforce. I see the power of technology. I see how it can release people's potential. The fact that, I don't have to travel to Scotland, I haven't had for years, or anywhere. And I do love traveling, by the way, to have a really productive meeting where I'm not exhausted at the end of the night. If I can use technology to take that grind that robot out of myself, if I can use technology to explore new ways of working, engage with new people. I have to say my days are fascinating when I'm talking to someone in India in the morning, the UK in the afternoon, the US, later on the day, and possibly sometimes Australia later on at night. The number of people I'm meeting online, the world is just an amazing place. I think there will be a recession without a doubt. We have to accept that, because people's confidence in the news that we're hearing at the moment is pretty dire. I do think we'll bounce back. I do think we'll use technology. And like every time you've seen technology explode and more people get exposed to it, it's released, time, cash, capital, people to allow us to do greater, better things. And to Mary's point this time around, I hope we do more, greater, better, faster things, but with a great deal of humanity in what we're doing. So I would love to see the Automon or Autowoman or the robot in the person coming out, and us just having fantastic brilliant businesses enabled by technology and digitization to live the best lives that we can and to be the best businesses that we can as well.
Definitely. I completely agree. And as much as I'd love to play devil's advocate and say that we're never going to get out the end of this and it's the end of the world, I do think that I think it's going to change a lot of organizations, a lot of people for the better. It's really going to change the way that we see work and the way that we see our personal lives as well. there's not going to be a work-life balance. It's just life. And I think a lot of people are slowly realizing that now, and a lot of organizations are. And from a recruitment perspective, I really do hope that a lot of businesses change the way that they hire moving forward. The ones that have changed and the ones that aren't able to change because they're not hiring, I hope that they take a leaf out of the other organizations' books and, start considering hiring people remotely, or looking at people, like you said, Paul, in different countries. If the person and the skill set fits and they're the right culture for the company, then why not? If they can do great work remotely, then, albeit I know not every single piece of work in the world can be done remotely, and people need to be in certain places, retail, hospitality a lot of the time. But if they can, then it would be great to see organizations really change the way they work. I think it's been a long time coming as well. So I hope that this does push us towards that good state of change. And I think a lot of people will become a lot happier. Obviously the time that we're in at the moment, we're in our houses quite a lot of the time. We've got our exercise, it's great, it's amazing. Sometimes sneak out to the shops again, but you can't look back at the old way we were living. And everyone's on their 2-hour commutes in big busy places, in shopping malls and supermarkets, exposed to all this stuff, and that can't be good for us. And we got to look at this as a new way of changing that and changing our lives for the better. So professionally, personally, I think it's going to be good. So yeah, I think to wrap up, some really good points. Just want to say thank you for, to each of you for taking the time out of your wonderful day to talk to me and each other and share your points of view. So yeah, thanks a lot.
Thank you. Pleasure.
Appreciate that. Thanks.